It's story time. Hello, dear. This is Winning Without Struggle Show. Welcome back. Now, let's pick up where we left off in the previous video. Let's go.
Three, two, one!
The orphanage needed all the support they could get, so they were delighted with this offer. Peter was asked to take the dog food to Mrs. Rhea, whenever it was time, which he would carry on his shoulder happily and deliver to them. Old Mrs. Rhea and her husband had a little boy of the same age as Peter living with them. Tony was a child to their eldest son who lived far away from home due to his kind of job. Tony was a bully. He would always bully Peter whenever he came with the dog food. Peter didn't respond to his bull why. Sometimes, Tony and his friends who were just like him would push him and call him names. "Hey homeless boy, why don't you get yourself some dog food if you are hungry? After all, the food is meant for dogs like you." Bastard Tony would cuss. But Peter always tried his best to ignore him and his friends who would laugh and scorn him more. Peter was always hurt when they called at him names. But he wouldn't want to retort. One day, Mrs. Rhea heard them cussing at Peter while she was in the garden behind her house watering the garden. She rushed into the house in time to see two of Tony's friends about to hit him. She shouted at them. "Stop it," she yelled. They both became frightened and ran away. "You better watch your friend's attitude, else I would have to stop them from coming here," she told Tony. "Why me, Grandma? I was just standing here. I wasn't the one cussing." Mrs. Rhea walked up to Peter where he stood and bent over him. "Are you okay, dear?" she asked Peter. "Yes, I'm fine," he replied. "Come, and have some pancakes and strawberry tea with me, will you?" she asked Peter. "No, Mrs. Rhea, I should be leaving now, I've just come to deliver the dog food." "Oh, thank you, Peter, you are such a great child. God bless you, dear child." She patted his hair. Tony didn't like this. He gazed at them with irritation and jogged off to his room. Tony stopped when he heard her plead with him to make some pancakes and give some to the other kids at the orphanage. He was pissed off and almost cried, but then an idea came to him and he left his room through the window in his room. Peter walked home gleefully. Wrapped in his hand were the well-packed pancakes he would be glad to share with the kids. The orphanage was just a few feet from Mrs. Rhea's home and it was a pleasure for him to carry out this errand. Suddenly, someone pulled him up and immediately hid the packaged pancakes from his hands. 5 friends of Tony and Tony himself stood there laughing and pointing at the pancakes, which were all scattered everywhere on the ground. "Who's gonna have pancakes now?" Tony bullied, and they all burst into laughter. Peter looked at the scattered pancakes on the ground. He turned and kept walking towards the orphanage. They didn't go away. They kept following him and cursing at him, pushing him from side to side. At some point, he was pushed to the ground and the sound of their laughter increased. Peter didn't know why Tony hated him so much. He thought of a reason but could not arrive at one. He couldn't understand anything. "Perhaps it's because I don't have a parent," he thought. Whenever he took the dog food to Mrs. Rhea, he would always watch out for Tony and his group of bullies. He didn't know how to stop them, but he was glad that Mrs. Rhea took note of Tony's attitude towards him and made sure to be around each time he delivered the dog food if she could. But Tony would still get to him as he walked to the orphanage. Peter would run off after leaving Mrs. Rhea's presence. Sometimes he would make it home, but sometimes he would be waylaid by Tony and his group. Still, he wouldn't complain or respond to Tony and his group of bullies. Miss Agatha, a reverend sister at the orphanage home, always used Peter as a good example when she is correcting another child for a wrong act. This made most of the children envious of him. Still, others learned from his good behavior. Many people around the neighborhood loved him. Sometimes he was seen helping an old person cross a busy road. Other times he would give a little child a hug to comfort them. He always talked softly and people had no choice but to love him.
Hello. I hope you liked that story. That was the chapter 2. Chapter 3 should be available soon. Stay tuned. I adore you. Mwah.